Hello, everyone. Welcome to Disruptive Conversations. And this is our first disruptive conversation of the new year and couldn't get a better start. Here's Tawny. I see her on already. She's waving. I'm going to get the invitation and bring her on board. We are going to have an unbelievable conversation. Here's the request to join. We're going to, if all of the tech Instagram forces are going to be with us to just make this happen really seamlessly. And it is. What a start to the new year. Hey, Tommy. Hi.
Hello. I put on a pink shirt because you're wearing a pink shirt and I wanted to match you.
Well, I completely appreciate that. So I'm going to introduce the show, me, you, and we're off to the disruptive conversation. And boy, is this one going to be disruptive. Wait, everyone, to hear this. All right. So welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, influencers, educators, authors, do-gooders in the world, in which we deep dive into the experiences these women have needed to navigate and conquer in order to have achieved their personal and professional success up to this point in time. I'm Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. And here's the good news. Change can happen at any point in your life. You're never too late. And I work with people to help them make the change that they want, positive change at any point in life. But to make change, we need to disrupt. You need to disrupt a thought, a belief, a habit, a behavior in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And although it happens serendipitously, sometimes you really wind up where you need to be. And today, perfect timing, I have, and I'm thrilled to announce, Tawny Lara, who is, I've never said this before about someone, the Sober Sexpert. Try that a few times. I did not practice. First shot on it. The Sober Sexpert. And she is the author of Dry Humping, a guide to dating, relating, and hooking up without booze, and the co-author of the Sobriety Deck. She also co-hosts the Recovery Rocks podcast and co-founded the NA Botanical Spirit. And it is with great pleasure, Tawny, welcome and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Risa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Fantastic. So there's a lot to say. So first, I want to ask you, what is it that you needed to disrupt in your own life in order to have created and to be where you are right now?
You know, I quit drinking November 30th of 2015, and I never in a million years thought that that would be the catalyst for so much change in my life. Everything changed. I stopped drinking because I just really wanted to reevaluate my relationship with alcohol and how it intersects with my creativity as a writer. And here we are 9 years later with a published book and a card deck. So I think I figured it out.
Well, as an author who is going to be published in October, I'm not done with the manuscript yet. So much respect. I think that as much as I always loved and respected authors, until you're in there and you're faced with that blank,
Yes.
the blank screen, the blank page, it's really quite an extraordinary journey. So, what is it that happened then? What because you're living your life, you're doing your thing. So, what is it that happened? Why was that a kind of a crescendo point for you to think about this and make this shift in your life?
Well, when a lot of people, when they quit drinking or just reevaluate their relationship with substances in general, they hit a rock bottom, right? They hit this earring's making a noise. Let me cut that. They hit a rock, like a proverbial rock bottom, right? And they maybe they lose everything or they lose their job. And that did not happen with me. I actually, but you know, you could actually argue that I was living in a rock bottom because I was drinking until I blacked out and living very recklessly. I was not taking care of myself. And there was one day I was sitting in a pub with some friends and we were just talking about why we moved to New York and the goals we wanted to accomplish. And it was not lost on me that we're sitting around a bunch of drinks talking about what we want to do. And literally that next morning I woke up and I was like, I'm just not going to drink, and just see how that impacts my creativity, see how that impacts my writing, my relationships, you know? And you know, I'm just so glad that I made that decision, because that I've always been a writer, you know, to me, I've always wanted to write, entrepreneur at heart, but I was never really able to tap into those skills until I got present and I worked on, you know, addressed my relationship with alcohol, got in therapy and figured out why I was self-medicating, and ultimately lead me to this crazy title as the Sober Sexpert, which has become somewhat disruptive, where a lot of people want to have, you know, meaningful relationships and they don't want alcohol to be part of it. And nobody was talking about that before. And I guess I need to do that.
It's, you know, it's such an important area because oftentimes when we're talking about relationships, going out, meeting with friends, sex, that there's a substance that's involved in that. I just
Absolutely.
I just got a hit of light from my side window. The sun just came in, so I am in full,
Yes,
in full.
I'm getting it too sometimes. We're looking very angelic.
Well, lighting can do a lot, can't it?
Yes.
So, because these factors have such impact, but we may not think of it because it can be so normative. So, how did you come up with the Sober Sexpert, and really what does that mean for you? And
Yeah.
what do we know about it?
Yeah. So, you know, actually, the woman, Ruby Warrington, who coined the term sober curious, she literally came up with that term. She and I kind of came up together in the New York City sober curious scene. And we did an event together about sober sex and dating, because that's what I talk about. And she introduced me as the Sober Sexpert, and it just kind of stuck. And I now it's on the cover of a book, so and it's behind me right there. So yeah, but it's like I said, I needed resources. I didn't know how to date, let alone have sex or communicate, have relationships without alcohol. And so as a journalist, I began, you know, investigating my own relationship with substances, and then just investigating at large, you know, the role that pop culture and liquid courage and, you know, all these work happy hours, just how inundated our life with booze is, but more specifically how that intersects with our relationships. I've just become so obsessed with that Venn diagram. And yeah, so that's how it all came about.
So, if you were to pick, I mean, there's a million things to talk about it, but you know, you're talking about this huge topic, and if you were to go into one aspect of it, like bring us there with you.
You know, I would say liquid courage, regardless of anyone's relationship with substances, whether you're 10 years in recovery, you're doing dry January, you're just tuning in and you're like, I don't know, this is kind of interesting. Everyone can kind of relate to the concept of liquid courage, which is, you know, relying on alcohol to make you feel more confident. So whether that is you want to feel more confident on a date, you want to feel more confident when you're at a networking happy hour, when you're at a holiday dinner, you know, you don't know how to communicate and have uncomfortable conversations without alcohol. A lot of us can relate to that. So that's really where that is that Venn diagram of my research, is finding that whether you're sober or you still drink, people really like the conversation of liquid courage and that language, as opposed to alcoholic or addict or anything like that. Just feel very similar to what I like about your work is just helping people, especially women, feel more confident, feel more empowered without alcohol, how to advocate for yourself on a date, how to advocate for yourself in the bedroom, and how to do all of that without alcohol.
You're bringing self-advocating into all different areas that people wouldn't necessarily think about advocating for yourself in the bedroom, advocating for yourself, at work. Well, that's more prominent. um, and I'm wondering what that experience was like, because as you're going through this, and obviously you've made this commitment for a very long time, that there's a that you start to tease out who you are and what your identity is without that.
Yes.
And what could you tell us more about that path of discovery?
Yeah, so something that I've experienced personally, as well as, in the literally hundreds of interviews that I've done over the years with normal people like myself, with mental health professionals, doctors, neurologists. Like, I've even like I want to understand how alcohol works, and what actually liquid courage is doing. And on that journey, I've really learned that people feel like they need this substance to feel more confident or whatever they need it for. But it's like, but that innate desire is already within you. If you think someone is attractive and you want to hit on them, but you think you need a shot of tequila before you can go talk to them, you actually don't, because you're already attracted to them. You're already interested in this person, right? So the maybe you think you need that liquid courage, but ultimately my work is really just about helping people identify that they don't need liquid courage. And I provide, conversation templates, conversation starters of like how to do this whole socializing without alcohol thing.
Yeah, and who you are without it.
Yes.
And
Who you are without it. And it's also like, on the subject of, like sexual liberation has come up a lot in my research. And I used to think that sexual liberation meant, you know, yes, trying new things, but like bigger, like just like I thought I had this vision in my mind of what that meant, of what liberation meant. But my research has shown me that for a lot of people, sexual liberation is actually scaling back, no longer performing, no longer doing things in the bedroom or on dates that you don't want to do, no more people pleasing. To me, like that, my research has really helped me redefine what sexual liberation means. And even a lot of people have come out as asexual or queer, because they're able to finally address these things. And I think it's beautiful that recovery or even a dry month can provide people with this kind of insight.
you're giving us a different perspective about what freedom looks like. And that freedom, because oftentimes the way that we're socialized is like, well, what's the next level? What's the next
Yeah.
step? I'm here, how do I get to there? What's that there? And that there can be more no.
Yes.
Can be like, no, that's not for me. And although, it may seem like bright and shiny in some regards, it may not be bright and shiny for you.
Exactly. And that's like in this, I often tell people, stop comparing your relationship with alcohol to other people's relationship with alcohol, because then you're not seeing it for what it is. And I would say the same thing about what you want out of the bedroom or on a date or even just in a friendship. Stop thinking, what does this person want from me? And think, what do I want out of this sexual experience? What do I want out of this lunch with my friend? And communicate, talk about these things instead of performing and being this person that you think that people want you to be.
From your own perception, and
Yes,
it may not be that's even what they would want, but
exactly.
your perception of how you think they're perceiving.
Yeah, it's like Inception. It's like, what's even real at this point?
Yeah, I'm going to share with you, because I think my assistant saw that last year I did something that I called Joyless January, right?
Cool.
And I called it joyless January, because it's the time when people, because that's oftentimes our orientation, is that it's about deprivation, it's about not, it's about taking things away from
Mhm.
ourselves. And so, what I wanted to do was, instead of having this mindset, this orientation to January of the not, of the deprivation, of the joyless, of how to make a shift in your mindset so that it becomes what you give to yourself. And
Yes.
space of scarcity or of self deprivation. I'm not a particularly great person about self deprivation. I'm good with self growth, but self deprivation, it's like, there's got to be a good reason for that.
Yeah.
But then we go into self growth and self giving. So, could you talk into that space of self deprivation versus self growth, self development, self giving?
Yeah. I mean, it's everything that you're saying can be applied to, if someone's doing dry January and they're like, God, I can't drink for a whole month. Okay, you're choosing to not have any alcohol for 31 days. But what, like, now you have extra money, now you have extra time. Like, what are you going to do with that? I would look at it from that perspective. And for me, when I was newly sober, I took a lot of classes. I volunteered. I met some really interesting new people because I was trying new things. I was doing those things that I always said I was going to do one day, And so instead of looking at, just like you just said, it's don't look at it from a place of lack, look at it from like, okay, cool. Like there's this space now. How are you going to fill that space?
And what was important to you to bring into your sobriety?
What was important to me? Honestly, honesty, getting honest with myself, like that, when this cinematic moment when like I looked in the mirror and I was hungover and I had like yesterday's mascara flaked onto my cheeks and
Thank you.
I was
Right. Truth and honesty.
you get it. You
Yeah.
get that visual. So it was like you can't pretend. I was like I am choosing to drink until I black out and then look like this in the morning. And then that means that I eat like crap. I'm not exercising. I'm not making smart decisions for the rest of the day because I'm hungover, not to mention what I did the night before. So it's being honest with yourself. And then when you can be honest with yourself about something as huge as reevaluating relationships with a substance, I believe it really can have this ripple effect of honesty in every other facet that's going to help you have a better sex life, help you have better dates, help you have better relationships because you are showing up honestly, as opposed to what we were just saying is like this people pleasing version of yourself that's really based on what, speculation, you know?
So when you embraced and have more than embraced, but really have been living your sobriety and connecting with yourself very differently, I'm going to add that when you're talking about liquid courage, that the idea that we can find that liquid, how do we take the liquid courage externally and really put it and have it as something that's part of our internal self that we can rely on, whether we're in a bar or at cocktail hour
Mm-hmm.
or we're nowhere near any of that. How do we take that liquid, internalize it, and solidify it for ourselves as a sustainable and self-sustaining entity?
Well, and as you know this in your line of work, this is the answer to that question is work, right? Doing the work. There's no quick, there's no like there's no like pill you can take that's gonna like answer all
Are
of
you
your questions, all of
sure
your
there is like a TikTok video on how to do it in 15 minutes?
yeah, that's next. That's coming
Oh,
up.
okay. Right.
Um,
But no spot. All right.
um, but no, it's doing the work. It's like I would ask yourself questions like if you are in a situation where you're like, okay, I am uncomfortable and I want to take a shot of tequila right now. I need some confidence. I think you could get a lot of self-reflection out of literally just sitting with that feeling, journaling about it, calling a friend, talking to your therapist about it, just understanding, asking yourself, okay, why do I feel insecure about this? Why do I think I need this thing? Like, I already have this desire. This desire is here already. Why do I need this thing out here to to access that? And that answer is going to be different for everyone, but I think that if you can give yourself some time to really, meditate on finding what those answers are, it's only going to help your growth.
So for you, you've made this commitment to what self-care and self-love looks like for you is encompasses and embraces sobriety. Has it, was as you were starting on that path for you, was it important to you to have to date people, to go out with people, to have a sexual relationship with people who are also sober?
You know, I I ended up marrying someone who's sober, so in a sense, yes.
I kind of
Um,
get.
yes. But when I was dating, I was open. Like, if you drink alcohol, I have no problem with that. I am not anti-alcohol by any
Mhm.
means. It is not good for me, but my friends know that I'm very comfortable with them drinking around me, family, have a glass of wine at dinner. Like, it does not bother me. But there is a chapter in my book that addresses this exact question because it's so common. It's like when you're figuring out your relationship with substances, all of this other stuff just kind of it just kind of filters out too. So yeah.
You had you were committed in your mind, and it sounds like, did you made up your mind and that was it? And then you went in and you got support and treatment. That's pretty amazing thing to do. I mean, lots of people need to either go into some sort of a program or go
Yeah.
to either an inpatient program or a partial
Yeah.
pro, partial residential program, or go to really be committed to a 12-step, some type of some type of structure that they can use.
Yeah,
And
and I that was not my experience, but I think that it's really important that we hear experiences like mine because as we see on television and on film and like you just said, there's this trope of, oh, I have a drinking problem, I need to go to rehab, I need to go to AA, I need to do all these things. And it's like, yes, that is definitely, those are options. But and that's also why I say to not compare your relationship with alcohol to other people's relationship with alcohol. I and I think this is why the sober curious movement is actually saving lives because by people taking a break from alcohol, people becoming more mindful of their relationship with alcohol and other substances, I think we're going to see just less addiction because of these mindfulness tools. And I know it's a pretty big statement that I'm saying there, but it's like this is harm reduction. There's a lot of talk about harm reduction and I think that mindful drinking and sober curiosity are forms of harm reduction where and don't wait until you hit rock bottom to reevaluate your relationship with a substance. Like be mindful about what you're consuming and who's around when you're consuming it.
well, whatever that point is that you have that moment in yourself where you go, this is it.
Yeah,
It's good to have that. If that's your path, it's good to have that moment no matter when it happens, if that's the moment you need to have, right?
totally.
But this idea, and it's so great that you're saying this, that you don't have to be strung out, you don't have to have blown up your life,
No,
um, in order to be able to, to pull yourself in the directions that you want to start going into.
absolutely. Absolutely. I would say it's in your best interest and everyone that you care about's best interest to be mindful about how you consume substances now. Don't wait until it becomes a problem. Like this is in completely in line with all of your work, Risa, is just like really taking that ownership of who you are and and not comparing it to other people, and just and finding that confidence, and knowing that there's nothing wrong. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I do have a problem with alcohol, maybe I do need to drink less, there's nothing wrong with you there. That is not, don't assign value. It's not good or bad. I think just being aware of like, hey, some things need to change. I think just that awareness right there can be life changing.
Getting out of that good bad
Yes.
dichotomy is really crucial and critical. And do you find, I mean, one of the things I think about a lot, and I see it happening a lot, is that there's this thing about being brutally honest, and that you can be honest without
Yes.
brutality. you know um and we talk about and beat myself up, that there's so much aggressive language, and this idea that this is how we get to do it is in this aggressive and
Yeah.
self demoralizing way, and that's what strong looks like.
It can, sure. It sure can. But I liked you had a video the other day. It was something about like cruelty. What was it? Something about cruelty,
Oh,
honesty without cruel. I'm
honesty
butchering it.
without compassion is
That one.
cruelty.
Compassion is huge, and so I think bringing that even just into your relationship with yourself, being
Oh,
compassionate with yourself. If you're having if this conversation is making you like, okay, maybe I need to change some things, it's okay. Be compassionate with yourself, and there's a reason we say one day at a time, right?
well, not only is there a reason that we say it, if we think about it, Tawny, if we think about it, it's really the absolute truth. We're not shining something up. We're not making it, we're not coming up with just like platitudes of some,
No.
that all you can do is that moment. All you can do is the next, our next couple of minutes together. That's all that's real and possible. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that is doable. You can't
Absolutely.
you can't do for next month. You can't do now next month. You
I've
can't
tried.
next
Trust
month.
me, I've tried.
Haven't we
Yeah.
all? Haven't we all in different kinds of ways? But that doesn't work. So what I'm hearing from you, and one of the important pieces, is that the idea of not treating yourself brutally, because by the way, that also will impede you. It will not help you. There's this idea that that's really the way, but it truly is not, because then the first thing you have to do is get through your own brutality and the feelings that brings, and to get to what you can do that will be actually constructive and helpful for you.
Be nice to yourself. Give yourself grace.
Be nice to yourself, give yourself grace, but that doesn't mean that you don't have accountability to yourself. It is
Absolutely. And
not it doesn't take accountability and self-responsibility out of the picture.
absolutely. Accountability is another like key point that I talk about just with dry January in general. It's, yes, holding yourself accountable, but it's like finding an accountability buddy. If you're doing a dry month, do it with someone. Go to attend support groups. Like really, don't just not drink for a month. Like really ask yourself why you drink the way that you drink. Ask yourself who's around. If you drink until you're blacking out, who's around you when you drink until you black out? Like I would say like anything that you can do like that's really just going to level up your dry month experience.
So as we need to wrap up, it goes really, really quickly. One of the things I'm curious about is, Tawny, tell us, what is your next disruption?
Well, I will say, as you mentioned in my bio, I'm the co-founder of a non-alcoholic spirit called Parentheses, and our drink, we didn't realize it, but our drink is very disruptive, because it's vinegar based, it's artisanal, it's bold, it's a bold non-alcoholic spirit. And a lot of the non-alc drinks are, really sweet and mass produced. And we're the small batch version of what we think a non-alc artisanal spirit can be. So I think that, yeah, parentheses is my next current disruption.
That's fantastic. So I want to thank you so much. And couldn't be a better conversation to have for our communities as we start out with in January. And remember, even if you haven't started yet, and if you start next week and then you let it go
Yes.
back to it. Try it.
Yes.
Go back to it. Don't give up. Just because you've missed a day or missed a few days or missed a week, when you even get out of January, there's a lot that you can take with you from what you did in January. So don't give up. It's a space of really connecting with your optimism and living it. So thank you so very much. And we're going to take our cover shot. Are you
Oh,
ready?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. And one more in our pinks. So, to the new year, to a great new year for us all. Everyone, remember that positive change, disruptive positive change can happen at any point in time. You're never too late. Can't wait to see you next week for another disruptive conversation. And as always, I've saved a seat for you. See you then. Thanks, Con.